Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awake in the World on this fifth month in the fifth day in the year 2021. Another five. It is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are live right now, and we are going to be talking about acceptance. So, hi. I don't know if I'm fully here anymore today. It's been a really strange day, and it's not like we haven't got, things done and went for a nice 4.5 kilometer walk through the woods this morning, and there's a almost like Stephen King's and the fog or the mist, whatever one it was, where the you lose all sense of space and time, and it could be any day. I mean, the only thing I know is that the word day is in it. And I'm not complaining. I'm not actually saying that's a bad place to be in. One of the interesting things about this 555 deal, the in numerology, the five has to do with personal freedom of will, personal expression of your own being, and wit and humor, of course, and some witlessness apparently as well. So before we get too deep into this conversation about acceptance, first of all, as always, let me express my love for each and every one of you. You're exactly where you need to be right now. Now, that can seem really bad if someone's flaying you with a cat o' nine tails as you're chained to a post somewhere in medieval England or wherever the case may be these days. And believe it or not, it still does happen today. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is that for all of us, each and every one of us, and us as a collective on every level, from the micro right through the macro, whatever's going on right now is offering us everything. That's the gift. That there is no end to where we go from here. There is no thing that you can do that somehow will kibosh your journey in this life, where you throw up your hands and you say, well, that's it, it's over for me, I'm done. This is the wondrous truth of our existence, that we're literally offered the opportunity to be born anew in each and every moment. That is the gift of the present moment. That is the gift of who we are. We are not limited in any way. No matter what you think may have happened to you in the past, no matter what you appear to be going through right now, this is all an amusement park. This is an illusion. This is part of our experience in getting to know higher and higher aspects of our own being. And you are truly and deeply loved. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about acceptance. And maybe that's a really good place to begin with acceptance. And I think, Kelly, I'm going to ask if you don't mind to close the balcony door for me. Apparently a neighbor's working on their deck project down the way or so, and I can certainly hear it. So Kelly will catch up to that slowly and then get to it, because it has to travel through Facebook's servers first and then arrive 15 feet over where she is with her headphones. See, there she goes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So when it comes to acceptance, maybe that's the best place for us to begin. And that is our willingness to accept ourselves no matter where we are in life. You see, all the idea of supposed to and should, right from I'm supposed to be married by now, or I'm supposed to have children by now, or I should have done this by now, or I should have done that by now, or I'm supposed to have a house by now. All that sort of stuff is nothing more than programming. Wherever you are right now is perfect, and being willing to accept that will make a monumental change in the way you view yourself and your existence. But you have to be willing to let go of the idea that there has been something wrong in your life. We live in a universe of one creative essence, one consciousness expressing itself in mirrored form. You are one of those forms. And yet that form is an expression. It is a momentary and fleeting point of view. And creation evolves through that collective point of view. We're not separate from the flowers. We're not separate from the trees. All of it is that same consciousness, expressing itself to the limit of its current state of awareness. So, for example, a tree naturally accepts being a tree, as we need to naturally accept ourselves no matter what we find ourselves to be at the time. And that's one of the gifts of being here and being a human being. And I do mean human being with a capital B. We are given the gift of taking on many roles. I have been a soldier, and yet the soldier was not me. I have been a young boy who lost his father, and yet that is still not me. And yet those are all roles that form the journey of my existence. And accepting wherever you are in this present moment. And when I say accepting where you are, I'm talking about where you are. Not where you're located, although, yeah, you have to accept that too. I have to accept I'm sitting here in a chair. But I'm talking about the state of your being right now. If you're confused, or you're lost, or you're feeling upset, or you're hurt, whatever the case may be, being willing to accept where you are right now is the first step in healing it. It's the first step in dealing with it. Because as long as we're pushing up against things, as I've always said, we're blinded by what we're pushing up against. It's only in opening our arms to what's going on right now. And people say to me, well, why would I want to do that? And the reason why it's insanity not to accept where you are right now is very simple. Everything that needed to be done or said or thought to get you to where you find yourself right now has already been done, said, and thought. It's long gone. It's ancient news. You're living out the remnant of those past creative expressions of thought, word, and deed. Now, that is not a death sentence. And it's not a guilt trip or a blame game. You are gloriously always exactly where you need to be to grow from that place, to evolve your conception of who and what you're choosing to be in this moment right now. So being willing to be okay with being depressed, for example, is the first step in working your way through the depression. It's very easy, and egoically, it's a game the ego excels at, and that is to try to pretend that what's actually happening isn't really happening. You know, we'll hear terms like cognitive dissonance, when despite the evidence being right there in front of your face, you still won't look at it. You still won't believe it, even though there it is. So when we're willing to openly accept ourselves exactly where we are right now in this moment, without blame, but with responsibility, which is a path and motion forward, instead of that never-ending spiral of doom. There's that word again, doom. That blame is, we are responsible for where we are right now. And the light of realization that is available to you in that moment when you understand an acceptance of where you are in the state of your being right now and taking full responsibility for that state is the most magical expression of your power. Because in that moment, you see that no longer can anything outside of yourself hold power over you. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't sway a little bit, okay? It's a process. You're growing through this existence. It's not a finish line you have to cross. It's a journey. You will still sway. You may even have pieces of your structure ripped off you in the process, but you will not fall. And the reason you will not fall is you've come to understand that accepting where you are right now and accepting responsibility for what you can choose about the situation, and that is all to do with you, your power is fully returned to yourself. A lack of acceptance is a type of insanity that far too many engage in. The idea that, you know, and let's move out now from the looking at ourselves and begin to look at the world around us a little bit. Because we see this lack of acceptance that begins within people. It didn't manifest outward. The outward manifestation is like the fungal growth on the infected toe of non-acceptance. So when we don't accept ourselves, that non-acceptance begins to move outside of ourselves. And the reason it does is because egoically, you begin to look for anybody who doesn't fit your bill of should and should nots. Why? So you can not accept them. So you can rail against them. This is a natural part of the process of life to guide you back to accepting the present moment as it is on its face right now. And accepting this moment, accepting the way things are right now, does by no means, it does not mean in any way that you are not fully capable of making change. As a matter of fact, acceptance of it takes all the energy that you put into pushing up against things, that you put into arguing with others to try and get them to accept your point, that you put into troublesome conflicts in family relationships, trying to get them to accept your point. When you take all that energy and you no longer do that, that energy is now within you again. and available to you, and with your new clarity of vision through accepting this moment and accepting that you're not in control of what anyone else decides to say or think. All this extra energy, all this extra focus, all this power courses through you, and that which you perceive in front of you now, you will see clearly how you must change your thoughts, words, and deeds, or help to guide the thoughts, words, and deeds of others in order to achieve a new creation. Another reason why we have to accept whatever is right now is that we are complicit in its creation. And we, as expressions of that divine creator, really should think about loving our creations fully. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that, just so we're crystal clear. I have created the situation, and it actually began when I was about 18 years old, that has led to the need for my back to receive surgery. I need double fusion surgery, and this isn't the first surgery I've ever had on it. I created that. The thoughts, words, and deeds that brought this situation right now all occurred in the past. They're long gone. But I accept where I am right now in this moment. And in that acceptance, instead of fighting up against it, instead of pushing up against it, instead of wishing things weren't this way, I am offered the opportunity to explore a whole new range of being within myself. I have developed a little bit more of a nag with Kelly when it comes to watching her posture and witnessing how other people are using their posture and commenting and using myself as an example. And it has helped me become even yet more present, because it's always there in the background of my awareness. Now, if I were to not accept what is right now and go ahead and start pushing up against it and everything else, it's not going to help my back, for one, because I'm filling myself with that negative vibration, and I'm not loving myself by doing that. I'm not loving and being grateful for the fact that I injured my spine through my own foolish egoic actions 40 plus years ago, and all this time through near-death experiences, through bouncing down rocks and cliffs, through getting shot, and so many different things I've gone through. It has held me together. It has been a wondrous, wondrous spine. Now, contrast that against an attitude that views the spine shouldn't be like that. I don't deserve this. And all the things that begin to go along with it. Where is the joy in life? It's still here no matter what's going on with my spine. Why? Because there's a foundation of gratitude and acceptance for this moment right now. And it encourages me to care for myself even further yet. Now, as I said, moving out into the world, moving away from ourselves, we really, if we want to be at peace, we have to value that peace more than anything else, which means we have to accept everyone exactly where they are. Because where they are is quite perfect too. So if you have a friend, or you have a daughter or a mother or a sibling or a child or whatever the case, who you believe is not exactly where they should be, and you're struggling with that and you're suffering over your perception of it, knock yourself on the head. They are right where they need to be. And if you can accept them where they are, you will then truly be in a position to start paying attention to the help that they wish for or don't wish for. Now, accepting where someone else is at doesn't mean we enable them to continue harmful behavior. That's not what acceptance is about. Acceptance is the understanding that all of the things that occurred to bring this situation about have already occurred. And that rather than rail against what is right now, we need to accept it and begin to understand how we got here. Because in how you got here are the clues of how you get out of this spot. And these difficult places and difficult people and difficult situations that we find ourselves in, they are the grandest opportunities that all of creation gives us. Grand opportunities. Opportunities to shine beyond what we thought possible. Opportunities to choose to teach through being the most loving expression of yourself that you can be. And that's another reason why we have to accept that which we perceive as outside of us. Because it is ourselves. It is part of that wondrous whole. You know, I saw a post on Facebook today, and the post was about, Japan's not taking in any more immigrants because they need to look after their own people first. And someone had posted this and said, yeah, maybe we should be doing this too. And it just made me scratch my head for a moment, and I responded, and I simply said, or we can accept that we are all one people. That the borders and the perceived differences are artificial, shallow at best. And that each and every human being has a beating heart, wishes to be loved, wishes security for their children and for themselves. The list goes on. So how do we counterbalance that? How do we balance that off in a world clearly going right off the edge? Well, we must accept what's happening right now. We must accept this pandemic. We must accept the state of war and poverty, and we must not be afraid not to look at it. We must be willing to objectively look at it and embrace it and say, no matter what, there isn't a single human being on this planet who spends all their time trying to do the worst possible thing. This world is filled with people who are ultimately doing the very best they can. And if it doesn't meet up with our expression of the very best that we think they should be doing, that's on us, not on them. In our willingness to accept exactly the way things are right now, our eyes are fully opened. We begin to see how we got here. And we know that now is the time to begin to not try to disassemble what we already created. The universe will look after that naturally. We need to focus our energy on assembling. to focus our energy on creating anew, on following a new line of thought and a new line of speaking and a new line of action that all lines up in a straight line. That's what activates the engine of creation. It's literally shooting an arrow as if from the Tower of Babylon to reach directly into heaven. We are arrowing our intent on every level of our being, thought, word, and deed, into manifestation. The same way God, if you will, that creative consciousness, through thought, word, and the outcome of us, the deed, is expressing all of creation through itself. If you come from a place of knowing that I do, or you have a deep enough faith, you will understand this clearly. That there is nothing in all of God's creation that is happening that should not be happening. There is not a single event, not a single encounter, not a single experience that should not be, should it be occurring. It is part of the perfection, part of that glorious web of life, part of that book that is somehow not yet written and yet already written, already done. Every moment of your life is already laid out, and yet every moment of your life is wide open to you. That is the gift of our existence in this relative universe. Accept exactly where you are right now. Accept life fully, exactly as it's presented to you, without judgment. Excuse me. Dentures, your mouth dries up a little bit, I noticed. When you first put them in, it's the opposite, but after a while, it just dries right up in there. So, and be willing to accept everything around you with that equal openness, that equal love. And again, that doesn't mean you stay in an abusive situation. It doesn't mean that you allow yourself to be hurt. It does not mean that you enable another. It means you accept that wherever they are is exactly where they need to be. And when you're willing to look at things from that point, you will begin to see with a new set of eyes, a new perspective that actually sees the signs. And long before you get to the point where that baseball bat has to come whistling at the back of your head to knock you flat on your ass and wake you up, you will begin to make changes in the course of your thoughts and words and deeds to avoid that. You will begin to understand how you got here. And once you begin to interact consciously with the creative essence of what you are, your creations will become more and more conscious as well. The very last thing that acceptance does for you, and the one thing acceptance does not do, it turns out, is help your mouth with moisture. But I can accept the coffee to help with that. Acceptance is akin to gratitude in that it literally clears your energetic field of being of any dissonant or negative vibration and brings you into the highest available state vibrationally that you can be in that given moment of that acceptance. And that is a much better place from which to approach all aspects of your existence. That's it. That's all. That's all I have tonight. It's a beautiful, I don't know, I think it's Wednesday. We started off with a lot of sun and blue sky, and now there's a light layer of fluff covering everything. I couldn't tell you what time of day it is or anything else like that. And that's perfectly okay. It really is. Take time just to be. Get yourself outside, get your shoes off, get your feet in the grass, go for a walk in nature, stand on the edge of a creek, let the minnows nibble at your toes. Take some time and love yourself. Look around you, look at the situations in your life, look at the people in your life, and even just for right now in this moment, you can visualize each one of them and wrap that situation, wrap that person, wrap it in your arms and say, I accept you as you are right now. And then do that to yourself as well. Again, all my love, namaste. Have a beautiful Wednesday night, and we'll talk again very soon.